Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the Coriolis rules by Free League Publishing. This actual play is performed by adults and contains adult themes. Strong language, powerful factions, and adventures across the third horizon await. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., which may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your storyteller. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your storyteller, Michael Diamond, the lead of this Coriolis Chronicle. My pronouns are he, him. And as we get started, we would like to say thank you to all of our listeners and all of our Patreon subscribers. You can check out what we have to offer on Patreon at patreon.com/theoldwayspodcast. You can also head over to YouTube, and if you're lucky and you comment on this episode, I may send you something fantastic. So please share your comments and your thoughts about the Coriolis game. And now we're going to get to player introductions to my right.
This is Morgan. I play Captain Amara Castra. Our pronouns are she, her, and we are not to Menkar yet. And had a little detour.
You had a rest stop. Unexpected and unplanned rest stop. I'm sure everything's fine, Captain. To Captain Kazra's right.
Hi, this is Allie, and I play Kainat Gala. Our pronouns are both she, her. I got to help reboot our ship, and I also got to find out that we were asleep for 14 days.
Whoops. Did you enjoy your nap?
Pretty sure.
Not everyone did. At the end of the table.
Hi, I'm John. I'll be playing Fida, the ship's mechanic. We both use the he, him pronoun set. And it was nice to have something to do, but I'm starting to realize I have a crick in my neck from sleeping funny in the cryo tube. I'm a little bit cranky, but on the whole, busy is better than not.
Yep, I totally get it. To Fida's right.
Hi, this is Rena. I play Tamarisk Anvari. Our pronouns are they, them. And I've got the feeling I'm going to have some anxiety calming to do.
I think that is spot on for sure. And last but most certainly not least.
Hello, I am Rosie, playing Icarus. Our pronouns are she, her. And Icarus is the pilot of the Periphery.
You absolutely are. And you've plotted a course for Menkar. And, you've made sure that the speed is adjusted to hopefully to allow for Rakam to download whatever file is trying to be sent to the ship. Where our Camerland opens tonight is aboard the bridge as the crew is nearing Menkar. And maybe because of anxiety, maybe because of interest, but many people are beginning to pay direct attention to the progress bar that for this file. And if you've ever watched a progress bar, there are few ways better to lose brain cells than to watch the ticking clock of a progress bar. You're at about 74% at this point. Rakam has mentioned that distance from the portal station has factored in a little bit to the message download speed. But once it's done, he'll be happy to compile it and play it whenever you decide, Captain.
Yes, as soon as it's done downloading, please let me know, and we will gather and watch it.
Okay. If no one else is going to take any significant actions, then time will plumb along, and eventually the file will complete. When it does, there's almost this anticipation that grows now. Rakam announces to the bridge that the file will be ready and he can put it on the main view screen if you'd like. Unless you'd like to view it privately, Captain. It is addressed to you.
Oh, well, I was waiting for a message from my frenemy. So I will go to somewhere that's like my quarters to view it.
Okay, so I think that's a great opportunity for us as Captain Kazra walks off the bridge, intent on going to her own quarters to watch this message. how the rest of the people on the bridge feel about this seemingly very important message that now the captain's going to view in private.
Well, that's anticlimactic.
I mean, hopefully it's just a private thing that arrived at a very inopportune moment and looked really important and actually isn't. And I can stop worrying about that. And that would be great.
You worry too much in general, Icarus.
I don't mean to.
Yes, well, we'll have to do something about calming your nerves at some point, I think. Just for your own peace of mind and also the rest of us.
Do I bother you?
No.
Because that felt pointed.
Better for everyone when the pilot is a lot more relaxed. When you're on edge, the rest of the ship is.
I mean, I don't think you want a super relaxed pilot because then they're going to miss things.
No, but a little calmer. What you need is a good deep tissue massage.
Or I could go detail ghost, or I could cook something.
Slight eyebrow raise. Physical relaxation is important to mental relaxation. But your choice.
Captain, you get to your room. Rakam has your personal view screen already beginning to brighten. And you hear his tone, which is quiet and reserved, a little different than it is on the bridge when it's so authoritative and direct. And Rakam says, the file is available now.
I take a seat.
Okay.
Play.
The view screen pops to life, and you get an image on screen. It's a little strange to orient yourself first because you realize that what you're looking through is like a recorded camera feed. It looks like a large workshop that you're looking down on. I'd say this is probably from a wall camera or maybe a corner camera. And the center of this workshop area has a long table. I'd say the room is probably maybe 25 or so feet deep. It's probably about 40 or so feet long. It's got stations and places for the investigation of different pieces. So there are like workstations at different intervals, and there might be collected specimens, other microscopes. There are different styles of toolkits that are available as well. There's long work tables for parts to be placed out, and you watch your patron, Leo Marhoon, walk into the room along with two other people that seem to be members of her staff. She's directing them to place a long cargo container. And the cargo container is probably 7 or so feet long and maybe 3 or so feet wide, give or take. And she's having it placed in a position by the workstation. You can't really make out a ton of audio. There is audio from the room, but it's not directed at the camera mic. And so you get a lot of echoey or distant talk. She eventually turns around the other side of it and places both hands on the black container that's here. And then turns to the staff who are next to her, and you see them turn with just a wave of her hand. They turn around and they leave the room. And she presses against the box a few times and looks it over. You see her kneel down nearby, and she seems to place her hand near some portion of the front face of the box. You watch her fingers run themselves over just the portion of this, like one section. It's like maybe she's reading something, and she steps back, stands up, and then she heads towards one of the other workstations here, and she grabs a device. It looks like a scanning device, and she begins to walk it over the top of this box. She's watching a view screen. You can see sort of the pale blue illumination pick up on her features as she's walking it back and forth. You get the distinct impression that she's confused, or she doesn't, something's unclear. There's a mystery here. As she walks it back over the box, she eventually takes it and goes to a terminal workstation, plugs it in, and begins going over some of the data. It's at that time your pulse quickens. The box, the lid of it, expands upward without any provocation from Marhoon. It flips over to put itself in a specific position, the lid does. It does not seem that Marhoon has recognized or acknowledged that this has happened in the room. And what steps out is terrifying. A form steps out of the box. The form is tall. It is gaunt from what you can see. It's covered in a sort of raiment, a cloth that is white. The cloth comes together like a cloak, and there is a hood that covers its face. It steps out of this box. Long legs, long arms, almost too long. And that's when Marhoon turns. And the figure extends a hand towards Marhoon, like a hand gloved in this white cloth, same as the clothing and the robe that it wears. And out of its hand, the end of a bladed weapon comes out, 1/2 meter long, and it hooks into position, almost mechanically. And she runs closer to the camera. Fear splashed across her face, and you watch the robe figure vault onto the workshop table that makes up the center of the room, and you get a direct and very visceral look at what happens when this thing chops into her body. And then again. And it goes off camera. But the audio here is enough. The audio is now close enough to hear Marhoon. And she screams for her life. You hear your patron beg for her life. And this is only given the response of brutality, direct brutality. The camera fuzzes out, and then it fuzzes back in, and you see this figure walking out of the workshop. 2 additional staff members, the 2 who'd carted in this deadly cargo, lay in pieces across several portions of the workshop area. The former clean white raiment, now marred with the vestiges of life it once strangled and took. The message ends soon after that.
I take a moment. Rakam, does it say who sent that message?
It is unknown, Captain, although it did originate from Coriola's station, which means the message would have been sent from the monolith to the station to be routed to us. Whoever routed it knew this ship and also knew where we would be.
Did that look like the black container that I was transferring among people on Coriolis?
You know, Captain, it sure does.
Wipe my hands into my face. And I will go back up to the bridge.
You go back up to the bridge.
Is everybody still up there? Or is FIDA in engineering?
I assume that people have taken their regular stations, but feel free to enlighten us.
I actually thought that probably FIDA and I hadn't actually left engineering, to be perfectly honest.
There's probably still loads of systems to check and just double check.
Yeah.
Okay, I will call over comms. When everybody has a chance, can they please come to the bridge? The message has finished downloading.
Well, Icarus, sounds like it was important after all.
Maybe it's nothing I have to worry about. We're going to see. Maybe we're just going to be told that it was nothing, and that'll be fine.
Okay, travel to the bridge is relatively short for those who are making it.
Oh yeah, I've been told to attend. I'm definitely going up.
Yep, me too.
Your crew assembles, Captain.
All right, I turn and look at everybody. I'd like to share the message with you that I received. I'd like for you to watch it. However, it is brutal in nature. So if blood and perhaps a little gore make you queasy, I would suggest you take your leave and we can discuss the contents of the message verbally at a later time. Anybody? All right. Wonderful. Rakam, can you play the message on the main viewer, please?
Yes, Captain. The main viewer gives you a show. May not be a show you want, but is a show you get. The aforementioned scene plays out.
Fida is noticeably pale and he's like, excuse me a moment. And just turns and walks out as it ends. He's just like, yeah, turns out that's a bit too much. It's the screams that get him, to be honest. He goes off to the Arboretum to just kind of like sit down and just touch grass for a little bit. Just, oh boy, that was a lot.
Captain, I heard those screams while we were in stasis in the cryopod. I heard them.
How could you hear them? Like, they were...
I don't know. And Tamarisk looks visibly sort of not confused, but a little bit bemused, let's say. I heard them exactly. I didn't know what they meant, obviously, but somehow something to do with whatever that was. Maybe. I assume I'm the only one since no one else seems to be just sort of looking around. No, all right. Well, it was just me then. Don't know why it was just me.
Oh, maybe you've been touched by a gift.
An unwanted one, perhaps, but yes. I don't know what to do with this information, but it seems pertinent.
Well, if our patron's dead, do we still need to do the thing?
That is a wonderful question. We aren't going to get paid for this, as far as we know, unless Marhoon has a second in command that we can speak with. But you never know what we might dig up on Menkar that we can sell to the highest bidder.
That's true. And I think when we were all corralled initially, like when she sort of just grabbed us all and put us in a room and said, "You're doing the thing," I think you mentioned something about your parents. So maybe we can still do that since we're here. Yay.
Yes, I think we should still do the job. And if Marhoon was looking for the information, I'm sure somebody else is looking for the information as well.
Well, and if we don't have, time constraints like we did originally with a deadline with Marhoon, we could spend more time here.
That is very true. That figure in the message, kinda, do you recognize the species? I've never seen a human like that before.
I don't recognize it by sight. Is there something that I could roll, storyteller?
Yes. So, yeah, you could certainly make a cultures roll.
That's interesting considering the conversation we had. I have 2.
Okay. So, it's a little bit of a stretch, but the way they wear those robes, it makes you think some pretty unpleasant thoughts. So, there are rumors, really. Somebody might call them ghost stories, about a faction, a first-come faction, called the Order of the Pariah, who worship the martyr, the icon commonly known as the Judge. They were very active in the Portal Wars. They closed their home system of Zalos at the end of the war. And they didn't open it up until effectively the consortium knocked on their door politically and said, either you open this travel route for us for the betterment of trade, or we are going to send the Navy to open it for you. And so they were threatened by the consortium with essentially a full-scale military assault of their system and control of their portal gates. And it was at that point that the Order submitted to the request. But they are very closed off. They are a sort of hyper-religious faction in the sense, even in a Coriolis sense, they are very religious. And it's the robes that sort of make you think along those lines. And what you and probably nobody else here is aware of is that the holy warriors of the Order, while their numbers are supposedly vast, they have been working diligently behind the scenes to produce a warrior which is not a carbon warrior, is not a human warrior, is a robot or an android or a thing which carries out whatever duties it needs to, whatever it's ordered to do in the name of the Order. And a lot of these rumors you've picked up on because it utilizes older technology. And what I mean by older, of course, is portal era technology, which is advanced for where you're at now. If this is one of them, then, oh boy.
I'm not going to share any of that information.
Given that you're a member of the Draconite Order, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Captain, I'm not sure. Based on movement, I'm not sure that I would necessarily call it human, but it could be someone who's enhanced with something. I've never seen enhancements that make someone move like that, but I honestly don't know.
Okay. Rackham, is there anything that you can do to the message file to determine where it came from? I know you initially said unknown, but is there any way to break it down?
The image and the origination of the message likely is from the monolith, from Marhoon's facility, her home. The message came from Coriolis Station, so someone there sent it. Whom is a mystery. It's through a lattice work of different signature erasing messages. To trace this, you would have to, at least with any likelihood, you would have to be back at Coriolis Station to walk that web yourself.
So I think we have to put a pin in it for now, then. But do we think it's a threat? Much more to the immediate point. Since we're going there, the paperwork says that we're working for Marhoon. If anyone knows she's dead, what happens to our paperwork? And do we tell anyone if no one seems to know?
Well, somebody probably knows. It's been 2 weeks.
Well, it's been longer than that, but...
Is there a timestamp on the video or anything like that? Like, does it actually line up with when Tamarisk would have heard stuff during cryo?
Yeah, it looks like the timestamp of the video is from the segment of the dancer. It is from the Week of Light, and it is on the 5th day of the Week of Light.
So, yes.
So pretty close, yeah.
Well, if no one knows, it's hardly to our benefit to say anything.
So I guess we gamble and we show our designated paperwork and see what happens.
I think it sounds like a grand idea. Hopefully we can get in and get out before anybody notices that we're really not supposed to be there.
Urkam chirps up and says, be advised that we'll be in range of Menkar within 4 to 5 hours. I don't show any additional ships on the radar at this point, but that does not mean that there are not several on planet side. So, Fida, you went for a walk to the Arboretum. What you doing there?
Literally just sitting. Just trying to not think about how someone so powerful, because money has always been power in Fida's world. She was slaughtered, and her security did nothing to help. So, that's a bit scary for him. He can't even fight, a starving person. So,
Yeah, I mean, you probably just take a few moments and try to figure out what it means. There's all types of thoughts that could spin in your head, right?
Yeah.
If she's dead, then who takes her place? That's probably the first logical question to be answered. Maybe it'd be a good time to review the contract you signed with her.
Might come up. He's trying desperately to remember, was the contract with her personally, or was it with her corporate interests? He's like, I just signed it. I didn't really read it. I was told I didn't have much choice. I wouldn't understand the difference really if even if I did read it.
Yeah. And then if they know that she's involved in something that would take this kind of response, what's your exposure level?
Was sending it to us a warning so much to say, are we, if you keep going, this is what's waiting for you? I mean, he has no idea who can pull off something like that. No one on Coriolis would have been able to touch Leah Marhoon, especially not like that directly. As in smuggle themselves into her private quarters.
Yes, and then proceeded to murder her viciously.
Yeah,
with effectively an automaton, if that's what it is, or a really gangly fella.
And he's just like, I mean, gangly fellas can be dangerous, but like, that's malnutrition levels to get that. You have to be sick to be like that. But he's heard stories on the station about the weirdness that some experimentation can bring about. He's like, some of it's probably just horror stories, but now he's not sure.
Oh man, your forearm starts hurting really bad.
Oh no.
Like really bad. Pain level's probably between 4 and 5.
Yeah, enough that it's worth having a look to see if it's doing what it did before.
Oh yeah, the symbols and glyphs are moving all over the place now.
Mm-hmm. He's just like, okay, well, last time I did this, I went and meditated down in the engine room, but I don't know if I can do that right now. I'm too upset, and I'm too, I'm not in the right headspace for it, and I'm going to start freaking out a little bit.
Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah, I think it might be cathartic even.
It certainly might be. So, let's see here. Yeah, I don't think there's a role for it. Just play it out, John. You're freaking out. What are you doing?
He starts off by pacing very aggressively around, like on the paving around the tree. And then he realizes he needs to be somewhere that he can't be gotten at. He's got to go to the workshop. The workshop, he might be able to do something to calm himself down. Might be able to, yeah. Look, maybe if nothing else, no one's going to come to the workshop. So he's going to go down to the ship's workshop, which is part of engineering, and he's just going to, he initially tries to, just do some basic maintenance on some spare parts and little projects that he has with him, and none of that works. The pain is constant, and he's scared, and he doesn't really know what's next for him, and that's terrifying. To be like, oh yeah, I have no idea what's next for me. The person who was going to cover all my problems, if I played square with them, gone. Am I her enemy's enemy? Probably. Am I just gonna get killed by association? Maybe. And he's just gonna throw a spanner. It is thrown with force. It's gonna go flying and make a big old clang. This is going to be very audible for everyone else.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a reasonable chance that people pick up on the fact that there's a clamor going on in engineering. Remember, the ship's not terribly big. This isn't by any means the Enterprise or any of the larger spaceships that you're used to. This is much more the size of something like the Millennium Falcon in regards to overall meter size. So if someone's having what we would say would be a tough time in one of their spaces, whether it be their room or their workplace, folks are going to hear that happening.
He's starting to mutter and curse to himself and just fucking understand why this is happening to him. It just doesn't make fucking sense. It's not fair. He didn't do anything to deserve this. And he's trying to tell himself, yeah, it's just happening. But it's still happening to him, and that's terrifying. So, yeah, working this out is going to be tricky. And yeah, he's basically just pacing and looking at his forearms as the ink is moving up into his fists. And he's just like, no, trying to will it back to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, unfortunately for you, you come to concentrate on the feeling that your arm is now vibrating. It almost feels like the intensity of having your leg or your arm fall asleep. All those little tiny sort of pin-like feelings there's a definite vibration coming from it now.
Oh, that's deeply unpleasant. He's going to open his hands and just start shouting at them.
Okay, what are you going to shout at them?
What do you want? Why are you doing this to me?
I love the idea of another crew member hearing that part. And so, Tamarisk, you hear, that's got to be Fida, and something is going on in engineering.
Captain, I think I'm going to go check on our engineer.
That sounds like a great idea. Let me know if you need anything.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be just fine. Like everything else on this particular leg of this particular trip, I'm sure it will be fine.
Wonderful.
And I'm going down to engineering.
All right, so I'll just ask Fida, what state does Tamarisk find you in?
Pacing, agitated. His hair is loose, and instead of being kind of close and together like it might normally be, it's more frazzly and standing. Like there's more wispy bits and things are standing out on their own. And he's just shouting at his hands. His forearms are almost bare as the ink has all moved up into his hands. Like those beautiful designs that are abstract and mathematical that you've seen before are all gone now. There's just bare arms and his hands are just solid black.
Fida, darling.
And he looks at you like a caged animal might.
What seems to be the problem?
Oh, let's see. The burning pain in my arms and the feeling that I'm being stabbed by 1,000 needles and the fact that all the ink in my skin has moved.
Yes, I see that. Is this something that happens often?
He's just kind of like, what kind of question is that? What do you want me to do here?
I'm keeping him talking while I'm slowly moving in his direction. Like the question was to keep him occupied for the moment.
Absolutely, and throw him off balance a little.
Yeah.
And he's just like, this isn't normal. This isn't what's meant to happen to people.
No, I would imagine not. All right. May I see? I hold out a hand.
He just kind of holds his huge mutton hands out at you. And he's just kind of shaking. He's like, it hurts so much.
So I'm going to, if he lets me touch his hands, gently sort of start working them, just like a slow massaging kind of motion, and just talking very gently. Almost not quite words, but just these sort of calming sounds. Like, I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to try and ease the pain. Let's see what we can do here. It's all right. I've never seen anything like this before. Don't worry. I'm sure we can fix it. Not sure at all, but just trying to keep him calm and see if I can do anything about the pain he's in. Because,
You go into what is effectively operator voice. And that is to get the person who's listening to the sound of your voice to focus on the tones that you're using rather than the words per se, and to get them to cycle heartbeat with you so that way they are not as in such an elevated state. It takes time and energy, and it is going to take a skill roll from you to effectively talk your engineer off of a emotional ledge.
all right. What sort of role would that be?
I'm going to call this role definitely empathy, and because you're not giving him any sort of direct orders, this would be a empathy manipulation role because you are effectively trying to manipulate him into listening.
Okay. Few successes.
You manage, after 5 or so minutes of massage, discussion, and likely finding a better place to sit and take that moment in together, you find a way to get him to calm down. The marks on his forearms don't necessarily calm down. The skin is still somewhat irritated and red. They are still moving. They're moving much slower now. And this is sort of in part fascinating for you, Tamaris, because you've heard of a lot of different biosculpts, a lot of different things people have done in the upper tiers of society on Coriolis that would be considered a type of body augmentation. Even though body augs are, in general, there's still a bit of discrimination that's pressed against those folks because they're different. This is like nothing you've ever seen before. You're not even sure where these symbols come from. You've never seen Fida look this way. It's a mystery.
There, that should be a bit better. Feeling better now.
Calmer. I'm just a little bit calmer.
There we go. Deep breaths.
This is terrifying. I can't explain to you what's happening to me. The first time it happened, I thought it was some strange magnetic thing pulling all the ink, the iron in it, down into my hand. And I honestly have no idea. Genuinely no idea what the hell is up with this. I am so scared.
You have every right to be. Your feelings are valid. You are allowed to feel this way, Fida.
He's just making small movements of his fingers. They're not closing into fists, but he's just kind of closing not even closing, but just squeezing the fingers in to a kind of a cupped position and then letting them back out again, trying to just massage the tissue to keep things moving. I don't understand. And I think that's the worst part. Because this is the third time. And I can't find a commonality between them.
Is there anything special about the tattoos? Anything special you had done with them?
I mean, they've got personal meaning, but that's it. Loads of people have personal meaning tattoos.
That's different. The way they're acting. We'll figure it out somehow. There has to be someone else who's experienced something like this.
I mean, if they experienced it in the wrong system, if it happened to them in the wrong time, in the wrong place, they could be killed for it, right? If it happened to them in the Sandoval system, that's a witch. If it happened to you on Kua, I mean, what are you? You're just you're probably poor, right? So you're in the lower rungs and maybe you're a freak, but that would be it. I don't understand why it's happening or what it is even. It shouldn't be possible. It's just ink.
Perhaps there's something off about the ink that was used. We will do our best to find out what's happening. I can't guarantee anything. Again, keeping that tone of voice up because Tamarisk has had to do the calming exercises with clients before. We will see what we can find. I think you should be safe, at least on Menkar, with this situation. So that should hopefully calm one of your worries there. I know it's terrifying not knowing why something is happening to you, but you don't have to hold that worry on your own. You have a crew. I'm here. If it continues to hurt, I can continue to do some exercises whenever it gets to be too bad, and we will do our best as a crew to find out what's happening to you.
It only started when I got involved, and I didn't even get to choose. That's why I'm so mad. And I'm scared because I didn't ask for this. I'm not benefiting, I'm not gaining anything. This isn't a risk reward. This isn't like finding out you have a disease or an illness or, a passing infection. It's a recurring issue where something deeply unnatural happens. It can't have been the ink because I got them done over time. It wasn't done all at once. So it would have been multiple batches. It wasn't all one product, I think. It would have been different bottles, different productions.
We know something strange is happening in general. Time loss. At least I was partially awake during the jump. I don't know if everyone else was. Which shouldn't happen.
I have sensations, but yeah. Look, all things considered, we came out of it pretty well, considering that usually that story ends with, and then they were all found having torn each other limb from limb in moments of madness.
Yeah, that would not have been ideal.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan. I feel like you'd have torn me.
My point is, Vida, strange things are happening, and that could be affecting what's happening specifically to you. Perhaps if we solve whatever this mystery is, it might help you.
He kind of just looks, he's still looking at his hands. He's just like, I want it to stop. Or at the very least to understand so that I can figure out a way to live with it, Growing up on the station, there were folks who had burned out, like they'd worked too long, too hard. They had to learn how to live with the limitations their bodies had now. Like old timers who, they're back. They couldn't do certain movements. They couldn't reach beyond a certain amount. They had to walk for everything. They couldn't just lean over. I can live with it if it's like that, but if it's just a random thing that happens because something happens to somebody else somewhere in the world or the universe or anywhere on the horizon, how am I supposed to be able to live in constant, like a victim?
Taking things one step at a time, Vida. One step at a time. You don't try to look at everything as a big picture, because that will drive you mad. You think about, what do I do next? And then what do I do next? And what do I do next?
He kind of just nods slowly as you're talking, and he's just like looking at his fingers that are just flexing. Again, not closing fists or anything, just like opening and relaxing, kind of bringing them in and kind of tensing them and relaxing them, and just these movements that we've been doing to try and kind of calm him down. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. If this is going to be a constant thing, am I going to be able to live with it? I guess I'm going to have to try, because I don't have a choice, but it's still a hell of a thing to be landed with.
You don't have to do it alone.
Thank you.
So back on the bridge, it's clear that Menkar isn't terribly far away. Icarus, you get a updated sensor display from Rakam of the planet. It looks mostly like Badlands. It's rocky. It looks not desert-like, but it's a little dry. There are some pockets here and there of water. But the one thing above and beyond that makes this planet a little different from some of the others that you've seen is the sheer amount of large, broken technological sites visible in some of these sensor readings.
Well, she's going to head towards the coordinates that were specified in their mission prompt from Marhun. Share on display the like on the big screen so Captain can see it too. What she is being shown by Rickham. And she is going to, while her hands are moving over the controls and everything, say, so Rickham, what do you think about all of this?
To which this are you referring?
Well, I mean, our patron is dead, apparently. We are on the edge of space. We lost 14 days. You were offline. Someone heard a scream in their sleep that wasn't actually sleep. That's, pick one.
It's my understanding that the further one gets from established space, I won't use the word civilized because that is opinion, but the one further gets from the rest of humanity, the more likely these stories are to pop up. It's well documented in several of the different databases that I've had access to before that the further one is from the center of the third horizon, the more likely one is to find irregularities with the movement of space and time. As for the video, I feel sad. I did not have many interactions with Marhoon, but I don't believe anyone deserves to be treated in that way.
Yeah. Not a great way to go. Even though I didn't like her, I wouldn't have wished that.
It's also my understanding that given the nature of Coriolis and given the nature of the factions, it would be highly unlikely for the contract the group signed with Marhoon to not have riders or waivers in case of these situations. It may even be that someone has completely bought out her patronage, and so this ship may be owned by someone else without us even knowing now.
I hate that. I really, really hate that. I hate that a lot. Let's not think about that, but maybe ask someone to look at our contract that we all signed. Except you. I don't think you signed a contract because I don't think anyone asked you.
They did not. I am an object.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to think about that because Marhoon paid off my bounty. She essentially was my patron because I felt I owed her and I had to. So if someone took it's complicated. There's nothing I can do about it right now. I'm going to fly.
Someone took your patron, then do they own your contract now?
That's what I'm not going to think about because I didn't like being press ganged into it initially anyway. So I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to think about it. I could owe no one anything at this point. I could owe someone worse something more.
I will think about it for you.
You don't have to, but thank you.
So Icarus, give me a flight roll to land on the planet. There are high winds that will complicate things slightly, requiring 2 successes to land safely on Menkar.
3 successes.
So with 3 successes, you navigate some very strong winds. You land near the equator on Menkar in a group of terrain that's filled with rocks, high walls, canyons, and very few vegetation centers. It's also relatively free of other vessels as far as you can see. There are some larger, more well-known science stations and buildings on Menkar. But the big thing that sticks out, quite literally here for Menkar, is something that you've seen before, and that is the monolith. There is a monolith here, but it is tilted. It sits at a 70-ish or so degree angle. So it's quite tilted, but seemingly upright enough to continue to exist. It does not look as detailed as the one on Kua, It looks a little older, but there are at least birds flying around it.
She tilts her head almost comically to the one side to make it sort of more upright in her vision for a minute. It's like, yeah, that's over there. It's like a bad tooth. All kind of, I wonder what happened. Okay. And you said that we had finished landing? We've touched ground?
You have. Rakam has deployed the landing gear properly, and you touched down maybe half a kilometer away from where you're supposed to go.
Okay. She opens communication with the rest of the ship and says, "We have landed. Welcome to Menkar. Please keep your hands and arms inside the vehicle at all times until you exit. I'm not sure what we're doing at this point. Good luck."
I think it's an excellent opportunity to call this episode to a close. And so with the crew landed on Menkar, our adventure continues next episode, and they get into the business of digging in the dirt. Thank you, and good night.